What separates the winners from the quitters isn't motivation. It's discipline. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. But discipline is the storm. It's the backbone of success. It's the reason some people rise and others stay stuck. You think motivation is what will get you there? Wrong. It's discipline that will keep you there when motivation disappears. Motivation is an emotion. Discipline is a decision. Think about that for a moment. Emotions are temporary. They rise and fall like waves. Some days you feel fired up, ready to conquer the world. Other days you can barely drag yourself out of bed. That's the nature of motivation. It is unpredictable, unreliable, and inconsistent. And yet, so many people rely on it, as if it's the engine of success. They wait for motivation to strike, like waiting for lightning to hit the same spot twice. But here's the truth. Lightning doesn't strike on command, and neither does motivation. If you want to build a life that lasts, you cannot depend on something as fragile as emotion. You need something stronger. That's where discipline comes in. Discipline is not about how you feel. It's about what you choose, regardless of how you feel. It's the ability to say, I will do this, and then follow through, no matter what. When you make a decision, you strip away uncertainty. Discipline doesn't ask, do I feel like it? Discipline says, it's time to act. That decision becomes a commitment. And that commitment becomes the foundation of everything you build. Think about a construction site. You don't pour a foundation with sand, because sand shifts with the wind and washes away with the rain. Motivation is sand. It moves with your moods. It collapses when tested. But discipline is concrete. It hardens with time. It holds its shape under pressure. And it supports everything built on top of it. That's why people who rely only on motivation never see their dreams through. They're building on sand. The moment a challenge comes, their foundation crumbles. But the ones who live by discipline, their foundation is solid, and nothing can shake it. This is why so many people start strong and fade fast. They sign up for the gym after watching a motivational video, full of excitement, full of fire. For a week or two, they push hard. But then the excitement fades. They wake up one morning tired, sore, maybe stressed from work, and they tell themselves, not today, I don't feel like it. That's motivation dying. And once it dies, so does their consistency. But look at the people who achieve greatness in fitness, in business, in life. They don't rely on feeling ready. They rely on showing up, even when they're tired, even when they're sore, even when they're not in the mood. That's the power of discipline. It makes action non-negotiable. They don't wait for the mood. They create the momentum. The decision to be disciplined is what separates dreamers from doers. Everyone dreams. Everyone has moments of motivation where they imagine the life they want, the goals they want to hit, the person they want to become. But very few translate those dreams into consistent action. Why? Because they confuse feeling inspired with being committed. Inspiration gives you ideas. Discipline gives you results. And the results come not from doing something once, not from doing something when it's convenient, but from doing it relentlessly. Day after day, week after week, year after year. That is the brutal, beautiful truth of discipline. It demands repetition, and repetition transforms your life. Discipline is a decision you renew daily. You don't decide once and call it done. You decide every morning when the alarm goes off. You decide every evening when temptation knocks. You decide in the small moments when no one is watching. And every time you choose discipline, you strengthen that decision. It's like building muscle. The more you lift, the stronger you get. The more you choose discipline over comfort, the more powerful your will becomes. At first, it feels heavy, almost impossible. But with practice, discipline becomes who you are. You don't think about it anymore. You don't wrestle with the decision. You just act, because it's no longer a choice. It's your identity. And that's the secret most people miss. Motivation feels exciting, but it doesn't change you. Discipline does. When you rely on motivation, you are controlled by emotion. But when you live with discipline, you take control of your destiny. That decision, to act regardless of mood, is what builds champions. It's what creates leaders. It's what transforms ordinary people into extraordinary forces. Motivation might spark the dream, but discipline is the engine that carries it to reality. And once you understand that, once you shift from chasing emotions to making decisions, you step into a power most people will never know. Excuses are the language of motivation. They sound reasonable. They feel convincing, and they give you permission to stay comfortable. How many times have you told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I'll wait until I feel ready"? That's motivation speaking. It whispers, it negotiates, it bargains with your potential. And every time you listen, you lose ground. Because the truth is, there will never be a perfect day, a perfect time, or a perfect feeling. Waiting for motivation means waiting forever. Discipline doesn't tolerate excuses. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't accept the easy way out. Discipline shows up even when everything inside you is screaming for comfort. And in that moment, excuses die. Motivation creates conditions before action. It says, "I'll work out if I have energy. I'll focus if I'm in the mood. I'll chase my dreams if the timing feels right." Notice the pattern. It's always if. It ties your future to a condition that may never arrive. That's why people who rely on motivation stay trapped. They convince themselves they're waiting for the right moment, but in reality, they're just delaying. Discipline breaks that cycle because it doesn't ask for conditions. It demands commitment. It says, "I'll work out because it's on the plan. I'll focus because it needs to get done. I'll chase my dreams because I refuse to waste another second." Discipline is unconditional. It removes the if, and that's how progress begins. Think about how powerful excuses are. They have destroyed more dreams than failure ever has. Failure teaches. Failure strengthens. But excuses prevent you from even trying. They stop you before you begin. They convince you that tomorrow is safer than today, that waiting is smarter than acting, that your circumstances are stronger than your will. That's the trap motivation sets. You only act when the stars align. But the stars will never align. Discipline is the weapon that shatters that illusion. When you live with discipline, you don't ask if the time is right. You make it right. You don't ask if you feel ready. You move anyway. And in doing so, you silence the excuses that would have kept you small. Excuses sound harmless, but they are poison in disguise. "I'll start next week. I'm too busy. I don't have the right resources." These words feel comforting in the moment, but they quietly rob you of your future. Discipline doesn't entertain them. Discipline hears the excuse and answers with action. Too busy? Wake up earlier. Too tired? Do it tired. Don't have resources. Use what you have until you can create more. Excuses build walls around your life. Discipline breaks those walls down brick by brick. That is why disciplined people achieve what others call impossible. They don't give excuses power. They give power to action. It's important to understand that excuses will always exist. Your brain is wired to protect you from discomfort. So it will always create reasons to delay, reasons to stop, reasons to quit. You can't eliminate excuses from showing up, but you can eliminate their control over you. That's where discipline takes over. Discipline is the ability to feel the excuse rising and still choose action. It's the ability to hear your mind say, "Not today," and still reply, "Today." It's the muscle you build every time you do the thing you didn't want to do. And the more you build that muscle, the less power excuses have over you. Eventually, excuses show up, but they no longer move you. They become background noise while you keep moving forward. When you understand this, you realize discipline isn't just about doing the work. It's about rewiring your relationship with excuses. Motivation will always give you a way out. Discipline refuses to take it. Motivation gives you permission to wait. Discipline gives you no choice but to act. Motivation gives you comfort in the moment. Discipline gives you growth for a lifetime. And the difference between those two paths is everything. Because the one who listens to excuses stays stuck, but the one who destroys excuses with discipline steps into a life that others only dream about. Every action you take is a vote for the person you are becoming. Motivation might push you to take action once in a while, but discipline is what repeats those actions until they carve out a new identity. Discipline is more than just habit. It's character. It shapes who you are at your core. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are not just completing a task, you are casting a vote for the future version of yourself. And eventually, those votes add up. You stop being someone who tries and start being someone who is. That is the power of discipline. It doesn't just change your results, it changes your identity. Think about it this way. If you go to the gym only when you feel motivated, you might go once a week, maybe twice, but it never sticks. You see yourself as someone who trains to work out, not as an athlete, not as a strong and committed individual. But when you show up day after day, even when you don't feel like it, something shifts inside you. You no longer say, "I'm trying to get fit." You say, "I am fit." That shift is identity. Discipline rewires how you see yourself because it proves to you, through repetition, that you are capable, reliable, and unshakable. And when your identity changes, your behavior naturally follows. Identity is the strongest force in human behavior. You will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. If you see yourself as lazy, your actions will match. If you see yourself as someone who quits when things get hard, your choices will reflect that. But if you see yourself as disciplined, as committed, as unstoppable, then your actions will rise to meet that standard. Discipline builds that identity by giving you undeniable proof. Every rep you complete, every page you write, every hour you focus is evidence. And that evidence rewires your beliefs about yourself. It's no longer just hope. It's reality. The reason motivation fails so many people is because it never changes their identity. Motivation is about feelings, not proof. You feel inspired, you act once or twice, and then the feeling fades. And when the feeling is gone, you have no evidence to stand on. Discipline doesn't care about feelings, it cares about proof. It stacks brick upon brick of evidence until the wall of your identity is unshakable. You no longer need to convince yourself you are disciplined. You simply are, because the evidence cannot be denied. That is why disciplined people succeed. They don't just act differently, they become different. And here's the real beauty. Once discipline builds your identity, momentum takes over. You no longer have to force yourself to act. It becomes natural. It becomes who you are. A disciplined writer doesn't wrestle every day with whether or not to write. They simply write because it's who they are. A disciplined leader doesn't question whether to show up prepared. They are prepared because discipline has shaped their identity into one of reliability and excellence. That transformation is far more powerful than a temporary spark of motivation because identity lasts. Once you become someone, you don't go back. This is why discipline is the foundation of greatness. It builds an identity that no setback can erase. You might fail at a task, you might fall short on a goal, but your identity as a disciplined person remains. And because that identity is solid, you will rise again, try again, push again. Motivation won't give you that kind of resilience. Only discipline can. Because discipline doesn't just build what you do, it builds who you are. And once you become the kind of person who refuses to quit, success is no longer a question of if, but when. Most people think discipline is a prison, a set of rules that restrict you, a rigid structure that steals your freedom. But the truth is the opposite. Lack of discipline is the real prison. When you don't have discipline, you become a slave to your moods, your impulses, your distractions. You become controlled by the pull of laziness, the temptation of procrastination, the comfort of excuses. You think you're free when you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," but tomorrow never comes. True freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you feel like in the moment. It comes from building a life where you're no longer controlled by fleeting emotions. And that is what discipline gives you. Discipline creates freedom because it gives you control. When you live with discipline, you're no longer at the mercy of your circumstances. You own your mornings. You own your choices. You own your future. The person who wakes up every day without discipline thinks they're choosing freedom, but really, they're handing control to distraction, to comfort, to weakness. The person who lives with discipline might seem restricted from the outside, but inside they're free. Free from regret, free from wasted time, free from the chains of inconsistency. They walk through life with clarity and direction, while the undisciplined wander, lost and frustrated. Think about your health. If you don't have discipline, you eat whatever you want, whenever you want, and it feels like freedom, until the consequences show up. You feel sluggish, you lose energy, your body suffers. Suddenly you're not free at all. You're trapped in cycles of regret and limitation. But if you live with discipline, if you choose to eat clean, exercise, and respect your body, you gain freedom. Freedom to move with energy. Freedom to feel confident. Freedom to live without regret. The short-term discipline opens the door to long-term freedom. What feels restrictive in the moment becomes liberating in the future. The same truth applies to your time. Without discipline, your time slips through your fingers. Hours disappear into distractions, into scrolling, into meaningless habits. And at the end of the day, you wonder where your life is going. That's not freedom. That's slavery to distraction. But with discipline, your time becomes your own. You structure your days with intention. You build routines that create progress. You learn to say no to the things that don't serve you. And suddenly, you have more time for what truly matters: your growth, your family, your dreams. Discipline doesn't steal your time. It gives you time back. Discipline also creates financial freedom. Without it, you spend impulsively, chase instant gratification, and dig yourself into debt. It feels good in the moment, but it traps you in cycles of stress and limitation. Discipline with money means you budget, you save, you invest, you think long term. It may feel restrictive at first, but it leads to freedom. The freedom to travel, to provide, to live without fear of bills or debt. The disciplined person sacrifices a little comfort today to gain unlimited options tomorrow. That is the true definition of freedom. Having choices because you had discipline when it mattered most. And perhaps the greatest freedom discipline gives you is the freedom of self-respect. When you live without discipline, you constantly break promises to yourself. You say you'll start tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. Deep down, you know you're letting yourself down. But when you live with discipline, you keep those promises. You show up. You follow through. And that builds self-trust, the kind of trust that no one can take away. You walk taller. You think clearer. You act with confidence because you know you can depend on yourself. That is freedom. Not being controlled by feelings, not being limited by fear, not being chained by excuses. Discipline unlocks all of it. Motivation is about feelings, but the world doesn't reward feelings. It rewards results. You don't get remembered for being motivated. You get remembered for what you built, what you achieved, what you left behind. Motivation might inspire you to take the first step, but it doesn't guarantee you'll reach the destination. Discipline is the force that carries you all the way through. You can't build a business on inspiration alone. You can't get in shape on enthusiasm alone. You can't master a skill with excitement alone. Those things might get you started, but only discipline will keep you grinding when the excitement is gone, when the journey feels long, when the results seem far away. Results are created in the grind, in the repetition, in the countless hours where no one is clapping for you, no one is watching, no one is cheering you on. Motivation won't survive those hours. It's too fragile. But discipline thrives in that space. Discipline doesn't care if the crowd is watching. Discipline doesn't care if you're tired or uninspired. Discipline doesn't care if progress feels slow. It shows up anyway. And by showing up again and again, it creates progress so steady, so undeniable, that eventually the results cannot be ignored. That's the difference. Motivation wants glory. Discipline does the work that produces glory. Look at any person who has achieved greatness. Their results weren't built on moments of inspiration. They were built on years of disciplined action. A writer doesn't finish a book because they felt motivated every day. They finish because they wrote even on the days when every word felt like a battle. An athlete doesn't become a champion because they were motivated every morning. They become a champion because they trained relentlessly, no matter the mood, no matter the weather. A leader doesn't build an empire by waiting for inspiration. They build it by showing up, making hard decisions, and pushing forward when others stopped. Results are not a product of how you feel. They are the product of what you repeatedly do. Motivation will always tempt you with shortcuts. It will say, do it tomorrow. You're tired. It will say, skip it, no one will notice. It will say, you've done enough for now. And if you listen, you stay stuck in cycles of almost achieving, almost finishing, almost becoming. Discipline destroys that cycle. Discipline doesn't settle for almost. It says, do it now. It says, one more rep. It says, keep going. And every time you choose discipline over comfort, you close the gap between effort and result. That's why disciplined people don't just talk about success. They live it. They don't almost finish. They finish. Discipline also creates results because it compounds over time. One disciplined choice doesn't look like much, but when those choices stack up, they transform everything. One workout doesn't change your body, but a year of workouts, driven by discipline, reshapes you completely. One disciplined hour of study doesn't make you an expert, but thousands of hours, repeated with discipline, make you unstoppable in your field. One disciplined day of saving money doesn't make you wealthy, but years of disciplined saving and investing create financial freedom. Motivation will give you a burst of energy for a day. Discipline will give you results that last a lifetime. And here's the truth: results are what separate the average from the extraordinary. Everyone feels motivated at some point. That's not unique. What's rare is the person who doesn't rely on that feeling, who acts with discipline no matter what. That's why results belong to the disciplined. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't hope for inspiration. They act, they repeat, they build, they endure. And because they endure, they achieve. Discipline creates results that motivation never will. Because motivation is about now, but discipline is about forever. So when the spark fades, when the excitement is gone, when the world feels heavy, remember this: motivation was never meant to carry you. Discipline is the force that will. Discipline is what takes dreams out of your head and plants them firmly into reality. It's what separates the ones who wish from the ones who win. You don't need to wait for inspiration. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need to feel ready. You need to decide. And once that decision is made, once discipline takes root, nothing can stop you. Not doubt, not fear, not failure, not time. Because discipline is power. Discipline is freedom. Discipline is identity. Discipline is results. Discipline is the foundation that every great life is built on. And the truth is simple: if you master discipline, you master yourself. And if you master yourself, you can master anything.